am a UX consultant and leader and a personal leadership coach. I am a proud member of the Never Search Alone community, and I was in JSC 689, and I am now part of JSC 307. A little complicated, but I have a long-term relationship with this process, and I'm eager to share it with you. So let's get into that. What am I even talking about? Could you go to the next slide? This community is called Never Search Alone. It's based on a book written by Phyl Terry, who is a wonderful spirit and a generous human who has spent his entire life and his entire career creating communities. His for-profit organization is called Collaborative Gain, and some of you who are leaders might have heard of it. It is a community of peer councils who come together to support each other in their career and career growth, to come together with, like-minded and similar level leaders. Sometimes the leadership can be lonely and difficult. And so as such, Phyl is a speaker and an advocate and an advisor and a community builder of many things, including he just launched the World of Business Reading Group, which is a program that high schoolers can join, and they've put together an entire program around that so that they learn a lot about business and business culture and how that works before they go on with their education. Slow Art Day, the Reading Odyssey, you can find out about all of these things, all of which just to say he is a gem. Never Search Alone was a book that he was in the making for about 10 years. He just had so many people asking him, please write down this wisdom that you have. And he finally did and released it, I think, almost 2 years ago now. And people in this book, Never Search Alone, he talks about 3 key pillars of job searching. I like to think of that as job searching for when you need a new job, but also we're kind of always job searching when we are focused on our career. So even if you're in a job and you know that you're trying to get somewhere, this process can still be that desire and help you shape your brand and help you shape your career growth, whether that role is in the same company or a new company. And similarly, it can apply to freelancing and to any other kind of way that you need to have your brand and look for your market niche. So let me just right now say, and you saw that I joined a council that's Council 307, and my original council was 689. So that means when I joined last fall, Council 689 was the most recent. We had 689 councils. Today, we have over 1,400 job search councils. And that, if you say there's an average of 5 person per council, somebody else has to do the math because I didn't do it in advance, but that's a lot of people, thousands of people who are in your network now when you join into the Never Search Alone community. And we do have a very active Slack community that is for communicating with your own job search council, but it's also for reaching out to others. And it has been a real inspiration to me to see how willing others really are to help you, give you feedback on work that you're doing, on your resume, on your OKRs, on on just how you're feeling about an interview. Just people will help, and it's a incredibly valuable resource. So that's where we are today. But really, what is it, right? What is it? And I'm trying to talk fast because I really want to get to what we've arranged today is to have a panel, and I really want to get to there. But let me just lay down the foundation of what Never Search Alone is about. There's 3 key pillars for Never Search Alone. The first is Never Search Alone. It's a pillar of community and support. And that is this whole idea of joining a job search council, putting together a team of people who are like you looking for a job. And that group provides support and accountability as you work through the process, as Phyl has outlined it in the book. It's not so much a dogmatic process as it is a process that makes sense based on research and real life. So, but it is different than what seems to be common wisdom for us today. We all kind of grow up thinking like, okay, I need a job. I need to like refresh my resume and send it out to everyone who has a job opening. And that's really not how most jobs are got. And certainly in today's market, it really is a dicey thing to rely on, that method of what Phyl calls spray and pray. So you're joining that group because you're going through something. No one understands, like someone else who's looking for a job, how hard and lonely and sometimes demeaning it can feel. And nobody can remind you who you are, like some people who are reflecting back at you and keep you on track with this. It's a 10-week program. So I think we just need, everybody can check that they're on mute would be great. So just the support, the accountability, and it's 10 weeks. It's a 10-week program, and there is homework. I mean, there's things for you to do. It's not just show up at a meeting with some colleagues. And the bulk of what you invest into this program is for yourself. So that's the community aspect, joining a job search council. The second pillar is candidate market fit. I think this idea is going to resonate with all of us because it's very similar to product market fit. In other words, it's UX yourself, essentially. What am I good at? What do I want? Where am I headed? What are my challenges? And how do I know that? So getting the feedback, this can be a hard part of the process. It's definitely the hardest, I think, coming up with your candidate market fit. But we wouldn't ever, any of us, want to release a product into the market without knowing that there was a market for it. And B, that we were telling that story in the most powerful way. So while many of us, our immediate reaction is, got to refresh my resume and apply to jobs, this process goes a little bit more like, let me do some research, let me do some self-introspection, and let me figure out where my skills can serve the market as it stands today. And that does take a lot of work, but it's incredibly powerful. I can say that it took me a long time to commit to my candidate market fit. I was resistant for a number of reasons. If you ever want to know that story, feel free to ping me. But ultimately, once I committed, things started happening. And I think there are a number of reasons for that, suffice to say. So the third pillar of the process is boss the process. So this part of the process is all about how do you go about networking, interviewing, and negotiating to get that job? How do you stand out? And again, it's not so much that no one's ever heard of any of this stuff. It's just that most of us have never strung it all together. One of the things that Phyl adds in the book that I was embarrassed I had never thought of, but I also, to be fair, I've never had anyone submit this to me, but when you interview for a job, why not reflect back to your hiring manager what your OKRs will be, how you see your mission in that role, and how you're thinking they are going to measure success. It's something that's maybe going to be a real conversation starter for them, but also demonstrates a real understanding of what they said, of to whatever extent is possible, their business, and your initiative, frankly, and interest. So things like that. And the group becomes, I think, very critical at this point, even though you start to get towards the end of the 10 weeks, but your group now are people who can truly support you as you go out into that place of putting yourself out there and networking and interviewing. I just want to say one final thing about the program before we get into the funnest part. And that is that it is a commitment. You will see when we have a form for sign up to be a part of a job search council with other researchers from the Guild. And you will see that we ask you multiple times that you understand the commitment you're making and that you're willing to make that commitment. It really is a commitment to yourself. Most of the work that you will do as part of this program really is your introspection, your positioning, your messaging, your follow through on networking and interviewing, etc. And there is a commitment to your council. that you will show up each week to, or whatever agreed upon. Most people who are actively seeking are meeting at least once a week. But that's something that each team agrees on. But you're agreeing to show up for that meeting. And when you don't, not only do you not get the value of other people's perspective and sharing and the support, but you're depriving them of it. So I do encourage you to be excited about the power of this process. But I also need to encourage you to be serious about the process and serious about the commitment that it takes. We are excited. I am a volunteer for Never Search Alone, and an advocate and a coach and a designer. So it's like all the things come together when I stand here and say to you, I think this is a great idea for you to get involved in. We at the Guild are going to put together teams of UXRs to be in councils together. You also can apply to become a member of a council, what is now the old-fashioned way, at phyl.org. And that would put you into a council with disparate functions. Most likely, at least some people would not have the same function as you. There are pros and cons to either of these approaches. So I just want to be clear about that, like that there is an option, but we're very excited to help support the community here in your search and in your self-work. So I'm sure we're gonna have a few links to put into the chat around that. And as background, I have a couple of stories, but if you want to link in a video about candidate market fit and a written story about how councils work and some of the resistance and some of the magic that can come out of those job search councils. So we'll get those links into the chat. And now we can transition. The way that I really wanted you to see how this works and what it's like is to just bring some colleagues up who are researchers who have been participating in Never Search Alone. Everybody's at a different stage of their search and at a different stage in their career. So I think this is a great sample. And I want to introduce to you Jeff Scott, who was a member of my original JSC 689. He has, well, I'm going to let him tell you his story. Jess Davies from JSC 656, and Jessica Johnson from JSC 1005. They are here with me. Let's give them a virtual round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think we can just be us now on screen. I want to ask you guys to start with the four of you. How is the NSA process different from what you had known before? And what was the hardest thing about following the process? Who wants to jump in? I see Jeff's mic is on.
Yep.
You want to go first?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Unless one of the Jessicas would like to take the start.
Go ahead, Jeff. Kick us off.
Okay. Hate to just jump in, but it was different because this is only really my second job search. Right? So quick background. I was active duty Air Force for a long time. And I was doing some engineering psychology in the Air Force and made a transition to UX research in corporate about 10 years ago. So I applied for a couple jobs getting out of the Air Force, had that job for 10 years. And then when the company that I used to work for went through some sweeping layoffs, I got caught up in the layoffs with another 2,000 of my coworkers. And so now I'm unemployed. And so I'm back in the workforce looking for a job. And when I found out about Never Search Alone, I jumped in, wanted to read about it because I loved the approach of UX thyself, right? Examine yourself. Are you a market fit given the market where it's at right now? And joining with people that were different than me, because I had 10 years of coworkers and colleagues and trusted friends that knew me, but joining the Job Search Council, now I've got people that don't know me and can point out my blind spots and can point out where, you just look like everybody else, Jeff. Like you're not competitive with what you got here. So let's help you refine your resume. Let's help you refine your candidate market fit. Let's help you refine, work through that process to make yourself distinguishable and marketable. So I thought that was different because I had other people helping me on my journey rather than me just trying to do it alone.
Thank you. Yeah. Anything to add, Jess or Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jessica.
Sorry. Yeah, I would say the structure was the big draw for me. Just having somewhere to be every week. And with people like Jeff said that don't know me, that actually it sounds maybe scary to some folks, but it's actually the best gift to get that more objective feedback. Yeah, I think that was, those two were the biggest difference makers for me.
Thanks. Jess, did you have something?
No, I don't think I have anything like super impactful to add.
All right, great. I know we're going to hear from you soon. I want to ask the group too, and maybe I'll just pick on someone to start this time. What is the workload like? What does it really mean to commit to your JSC? And can I start with you, Jess?
Yeah, so we actually were JSC 656, and we actually spoke in front of the entire community of like 1,000 people. And what we really talked about was the reason that our JSC, it's like an all women's JSC, is so successful is for two reasons, which is commitment and vulnerability. So the vulnerability piece is super important. And then obviously the commitment, you have to show up every week. So we chose to do 2-hour meetings every week for 10 weeks. So there's that commitment. And then, it takes time to schedule interviews with there's a listening tour, which is where you kind of like chat with everyone that you have worked with previously, as many people as you can, as well as like, then there's a piece that's with HR people or like talent professionals. And so that takes a while. I don't remember what they suggest, but I think they say you can do it in like 20 or 30 minutes. Like I say no way on that. Like to me, it was like a full hour's process going through that. So there's some time there. But I really don't think any of the things that are in the book are time that's not well spent. So it's really trying to figure out what you want. And even if that you can't get that right now because of the candidate market fit, it is actually going to be super important for throughout your career. How are you going to make decisions on, what to really focus on, not just jumping at everything that comes your way, which people do a lot when they're doing job hunting. So it definitely does take time, but I think it's totally worth it. It also allows you to kind of explore yourself a little bit. Like there are problems I thought I had in my previous job, which it turned out I didn't have, or when I asked people like, did they have these particular issues? They were like, no, that wasn't an issue for me. So it's also like you have all these like kind of running dialogue and stuff in your head. And when you go back and actually talk to people, that maybe some of the issues you thought were issues weren't, and maybe there was something you hadn't thought of. So it's super important that, personal introspective work, but it's worth.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else to add to the commitment? I will add, there was someone unnamed in my group who committed early on and then quickly could have left having found a job. I'll let you figure this out in 5 minutes. But stayed and honored that commitment. And I feel like that's really valuable. I mean, it's your group gets to decide if that's how you want to work, and any individual can decide if that's how you want to work. But I think there's a lot of trust built and a lot of safety when people make a commitment and then they keep it and they continue to support you, even though their needs have changed. So I just want to put that little plug in there for someone who I have a lot of respect for. Speaking of that person, Jeff, you really jumped into this process like with all of your limbs. I mean, feet first, you were in it, and read the book, got down to work, even as the team was just forming. And, you know, it really worked for you. It was a real success story. So I'm wondering, could you share that story with us and some of the twists that your path took that maybe would be different than what you thought when you first decided to look for a job?
Sure. Yeah, I read the book cover to cover and downloaded some of the free materials before I even signed up for a JSC, just because I wanted to get a sense of how much work will this be? What's the commitment like? What am I really getting into? So by the time we all formed up, I had already started on my 2-pager. I'd started thinking about what I wanted, what I was going to look for, what kind of jobs I was going to find or seek. So I felt pretty well comfortable and competent that this is something that's worth my time and that I want to commit to it and do this thing. So I started doing that. And by the time our JSC was like still early with the 2-pagers and the candidate market fit, I was already moving into the listening tours and starting some of the job applications, because when something came across, like I'm going to jump at it because I want to see if it's out there. The book will say don't do it, but there were some things that really linked up to my 2-pager on what I wanted out of my next job. And so I started looking at those things, and that really helped me zero in on what I was looking for. So instead of just casting a line in every pond that's out there, I was trying to be very specific about what I wanted and the type of job I wanted to do. One of the twists came to at the OKR part, when I actually got in the interview stage and I brought my OKRs. When I went into that exercise with the book, with the work papers, I realized very quickly that I have to approach this exercise with humility, because I don't know what this company's like. I don't, this hiring manager that I'm talking to, like, I came out of one industry. This is a completely different industry. So I leaned into my strengths of what it takes to be a UX researcher in a large organization, and then tried to frame my OKRs around that, with this big fat caveat when I was pitching them to my future hiring manager, like that this is how I think I can approach this job. This is how I think I can contribute based on what I know about the research I've done on the company, the research I've done on the team, the listening tour. So focusing those OKRs, instead of like, I got this in the bag, I know how to do it, to I think this is how this is going to apply at this company, on this team, in this context. It was important to keep that context in mind so that it didn't come off looking like a know-it-all, I got it figured out, but more of an open-minded, curious, this is what I think I could do. And at least that demonstrates some forward thinking, and it demonstrates some, like, I've done my homework, I've done my research. We are researchers, so I did. And so that was an interesting twist for me, was the OKR phase of the process.
I just remember too a time when you drew a Venn diagram, and it seemed like you had thought about that, you know, forever. You were born with that Venn diagram, but what was impressive was you were just like, this just came together in my mind, like from going through all of this, and it actually resulted in you pivoting a little from where you were to get where you eventually want to go. And it just all felt so thoughtful.
Yeah, it started when I was doing my 2-pager. So for those of you that haven't read the book or haven't signed up yet, you'll do this Manukin 2-pager exercise. You'll go through love, hate, you'll go through all these different things. And I wound up taking what I had written and mapping it onto like a hierarchy of needs. What do I absolutely have to do to have an awesome job? Right? I want to do UX research. I'm in the Denver metro area. I want to be in the Denver metro area. I don't want a remote job. I want to like go to the office. So I build those things out at the bottom. And then the next level And then the next level, like what would be the pinnacle of my pyramid? Well, when I wrote that out and drew the picture, then as I started looking at jobs, I noticed that some of these things overlapped. So in one circle would be in Denver. As I moved up my pyramid, I wanted an easy commute because I could, from where I lived, it could be anywhere from a 10-minute to a 70-minute commute, depending on how the metro area is laid out. I wanted an easy commute. So when I started finding these jobs where the location was, one circle was easy commute, one circle was in Denver, one circle is like competitive salary, and it all just kind of fit. And that's how I used this work that I did in Never Search Alone to help identify the jobs that I wanted to apply for.
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I am going to move to Jessica in a sec, but I think one of the things that's really beautiful about Jeff's example, and I mean, we could literally just spend an hour breaking down his case, but the job he landed in fits so many criteria about where he wants to go in his career, right down to like the kind and expertise of the person he reports to. So I have to believe that like that clarity is what allowed him to keep moving to the right place on the chessboard and then finally seal a deal that so far is going well. So,
4 months
thank you
in,
so much.
seems to be going well. Thanks, Tracy.
So amazing. Okay, Jessica Johnson, could you introduce yourself to everyone and what you do, kind of where you are in your career? And then I have a question for you.
Sure. As with most people, I took kind of an indirect path to the UX world. I have a degree in anthropology and was working more in like human services, college access work. I did a couple years of AmeriCorps, if there are any AmeriCorps alums out there. And then essentially just got really burnt out working with my last role in that capacity was managing an academics department for a program that helped young people with disabilities. So it was like a lot of case management and crisis management. Yay, anthro people. I was taking a drawing class at a local community college as a way of not just going home and going to Netflix every night, and discovered that I really loved the collaborative aspect of it. And so I ended up doing a boot camp through Springboard, and ended up working at a small UX research consultancy, which is actually how I connected with Tracy as well. And worked there for 2 years on all kinds of different projects with all types of different companies, Google, Bloomberg, Northwestern Mutual. So lots of different areas, and then ended up being laid off in July of this last summer, and really just took a couple of months afterward and did a lot of visiting family and spending time outside, and then kind of ramped up the search through the holidays, but wasn't really getting anywhere. And then actually, Tracy, we connected, and then I saw that you were posting about the Never Search Alone community, and so looked into that and ended up signing up. Unlike Jeff, I did not do much due diligence beforehand. I was like, yep, this sounds great. I need structure. I need community. I need to not be a hermit in my apartment. And I'm not getting anywhere with the job process. So what can it hurt? And it's really been a really huge gift. The community that I found, the group that I'm in, they do a great job with placing you in a group with peers that you're gonna connect with. Maybe that's some of it is a fluke, but it's been really great. The structure is something that I really need, like I said before, and I'm still looking, but I've definitely landed in a place through, over the course of just a couple months when I had been searching for, at least 6 months before that. Just in a couple of months have really narrowed my focus and been able to discover like exactly like what kind of direction I want to go in, and what I'm good at and what I'm not interested in, which is just as important as what you are interested in. So so here I am
That's
now.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You hit on a couple of things that I think are key. Phil talks a lot about like if you are in the process because of a layoff or something, it's really important to take a little time for yourself. And I'm glad you were able to do that. And then I think that I wanted to know, it sounds like it's been helpful in narrowing your focus, but I think you told me the other day, like you're starting to be in the networking and interviewing process. How do you feel like the Never Search Alone process has prepared you for those activities?
It's helped, first of all, by just reconnecting with folks that you've previously worked with. That in itself is a huge network of people. If you think about, the LinkedIn, like first, second, third degree connections, how many people are connected to any one person. And that's like the easiest way to get those kind of warm introductions is by going through people that already know you, they know your strengths, and can speak to your actual experience. And it's also just helped by being able to reflect on, where, like we were talking about the candidate market fit. I can better speak to the skills that I bring to any position or company, because I've heard that echoed back to me and I've kind of reflected on my preferences as well.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's like you've got your story. You know what your story is and what you're looking for. Thanks. Jess, I'm trying to enunciate because I have Jess and Jeff and Jessica. I didn't do that on purpose, and I didn't think about how I would talk to them and how hard it might be. But Jess, the market is hard. I mean, I think this is on everybody's mind. And NSA is really focused on like finding this great job for yourself. I mean, if you just read it when it was written, it would maybe sound a little bit more like how to find your ideal job. But the market is a real player right now and shifting. I'm wondering, how have you navigated that quest for the ideal job and balanced it with the realities of the market as you've encountered it?
Yeah, we actually had in our JSC, we actually had a guy that was in a group. So I was the moderator for all women GSC. And he was with us for like 2 weeks and he's like, this isn't going fast enough and you can't find your ideal job in this market anyways. So I'm just going to leave and take whatever job. Right. And I think he's sort of missing the point, which is that ultimately you would hope to be working towards your ideal job, right? And so if you do not know what that is, it's kind of like I specialize in strategic UX research. If you don't know where you're going, it's going to be really hard to get there. So I think, you need to do all of this work to put together what is your ideal job, so that as you're looking at different opportunities, you're not just sort of like jumping at everything. So like, that's the first thing. And then, yeah, there is like the reality of where we are right now. So one of the things there's a couple of things I think it reminded me of like what Jeff did. So with this really dynamic woman in our group who's now head of product for a startup. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to go back into contracting. That's how I started to transition to tech. Really didn't want to do that because, contractors are not treated very well at a lot of companies. They kind of get the crappy work that the FTEs don't want to do. And so I wasn't excited about that. But what Kim said is like, let's try to think about, what you could potentially get out of it. So like, if I'm thinking about all my things, I'm the opposite of Jeff. I want remote work. I commuted a lot in San Francisco. I'm never doing that again. So it's like, I'm thinking about remote, what the salary is it an FTE or is it a contract? The type of work, right? So I really prefer strategic UXR. I'm not a usability jockey. I don't want to be stuck in that sort of an environment, or people that think that that's all that UX research is. Thinking about what industry and sector I'm really excited about, and then like boss and culture, right? So this opportunity, and then, so I've got that I'm thinking about when my Rubik, kind of his Venn diagram. And then I talked to a headhunter, and I talked to her really about like kind of what are if it is a contract, how would I get that? And what are the salary minimums I would take, right? So she gave me a number, and I never considered anything lower than that number, right? And so when the job that I have right now came along, it's for Starbucks, and we're creating like the future of data. They're using machine language, right? And so it's remote, right? It's not a super high salary. It's a lot less than I was making before, but it's that minimum that the headhunter gave me. So it meets that criteria. And then it's I have to give up on the FTE, right? It's not an FTE. It's like a W-2 consultant job. But the type of work is very strategic, right? It's figuring out the future of data for Starbucks, small job and very strategic, very much in my wheelhouse. And then the industry, not really excited about or unexcited about coffee either way. It's not like my favorite industry, but it's really AI, right? That's sort of the industry and sector that's interesting, the machine language, which is, what we're building there. And then there's boss and culture. And I feel like I got really lucky there. The culture is really great and my boss is really great, but you really can't know that in advance, right? So it's like thinking about like, these are the 5 things or whatever that are super important to me. And then talking about what are you willing to sacrifice or not sacrifice, and making sure that you have, like, you've done that candidate market fit, so that you're not taking something that's paying a lot worse, or that's a really bad situation when you really don't have to.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I hear in your story is you are clear because of the process on where you do want to end up. And this contract is on that, it's still on that path. You're not wildly divergent. It's a divergent in terms of like what you would have hoped, or maybe if you had a wand, that in a different market you would have had that job. But you're like working with reality as it is, and it's worked out in the sense that like it really is giving you this very cool set of experiences that will serve you in that next spot.
Well, and it's funny because what I finally committed to in my market fit is that I've started, this is going to be the 4th UX research practice that I've started. 2 of them are at startups and 2 of them are at like larger companies. And it is that, again, which is my, that's my candidate market fit, that I want to work at a startup, preferably in real estate or crypto. And, I'm not so concerned about the size of the company, but really focused on creating all of the elements that you need for creating a practice, and then also helping the company really figure out their strategic direction. I come from Wall Street. Strategy and vision is a big thing for me. So it's really important that that's a part of what UX research does. And so it's funny, I was thinking about this today. Yes, it's Starbucks, which is a massive company. I think it's the biggest retail company in the US. But this group for Starbucks has never had UX research before. So I am creating it in the same way that I would for a startup, trying to like really show how UX research is important, really create a team and create collaboration, and set in place all of the different things, whether it's like, templates or best practices or workshops. Like, this is how research is going to work at the data group. It's called Divo, that is part of Starbucks. And so it's actually doing a lot of that same work, even though it is in a large company.
Hey, Tracy, before we move on, can I pull a thread that Jess just talked about? Jess, you told a quick story about the person that was in your JSC that said, this isn't moving fast enough. I'm just going to bail out and go look for something. as UXers, every one of you might have had a little sigh on your heart. Like, how many times have you heard development say, we don't need that. We're just going to build it. We need to go faster. So we don't need the research. Right? And then it gets delivered, and then it's broken, and then you still have problems with it. And there's user adoption and usability. That's the metaphor for what we're doing here. Take a beat, do the research on yourself. Don't build crap software. Don't build a crap job seeker. Like, build the best job seeker you can. Take the time, put the effort in, and it'll work.
That's a great, great point. Go slow to go fast, right? Or slow down to go fast, I think. Yeah. But I love the analogy to development.
Yeah, I think that's pinpoint. I'd also like to add that, like Jess was saying, sometimes you won't even consider something because it seems so out of what you're looking for. But once you develop that candidate market fit, you do the listening tour, you find these roles that actually do cover the bases, but might not be anything of what you were originally looking for. So you're actually end up opening yourself up to more opportunities by being more specific.
Yeah. Like, if we took a poll right now and either thumbs up or thumbs down, and we said, would you work for a telecom provider? I would guess that many of you would like, nope, no way. Not working for cable and telephone. That sucks. I took a job in cable and telephone, and I'm loving it because of the things. So like Jess, your job at Starbucks, right? Yeah, you're at a big company, but you're doing this really cool job with some really cool tech. That's cool. So don't get too wrapped up around the things that don't matter, because there's probably something that does matter that will make this job seeking process really important and meaningful for you.
Thank you. Very, very good points. I am curious, I think all of you would recommend this program, but I'm wondering, what would you say to our audience today about joining into Never Search Alone and getting a little job search council team going? Why should they do that?
I mean, I think from my perspective, a UX researcher, particularly someone that does a lot of, I create a lot of products from scratch. I've done that, right? So that requires a lot of UX open-minded thinking, and a lot of workshopping and things like that. You should volunteer to be the moderator. Like, once I'm a moderator of 656, and once I started over, that's a skill that we have that other people don't have. So you can help to create a really good environment with your JSC. You can help to make sure that your JSC stays together for the long haul and really does what it's supposed to do, that it does that commitment and vulnerability. And I think UXRs are really uniquely positioned to do that. So I think you get a lot out of the program. I think you also feel like, when I started doing it, I was like, oh, I forgot I'm actually really good at something. Right. And I do workshops for a living, and I'm great at that. So it's very easy for me to do this and help all of these people through it. So I'm not saying it's your responsibility as a UXR, but you're uniquely talented, and you should use that to help others and yourself.
Yeah, I would add, so you get this whole other layer of value of knowing what's going on in the community at the highest levels, hearing from other moderators, and being able to share the tools and challenges that they have back to your own team. And yet it's not really that much more work than you were doing anyway, because there's an agenda already set out for you for all 10 weeks. And no reason that you can't delegate any of those given weeks. But usually it's just here's what we're going to do today. Okay, we're going to break up in pairs and talk about a thing, or let's go around the room and discuss so-and-so's resume, let's look at it and give feedback. So it's not a lot of extra work for a big payout. I think personally, you just get another layer of the experience.
It's using Tracy, your empathy superpower, right? So you're seeing all these people that are going through this stuff, and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, like people were giving too much of a rosy take on their job search. And so I made a point to like really say, hey, what are the things that are tough? Right. So that we could all sort of like bond over, this is actually really tough too. This is not about just putting your best corporate face on. So, and I think because we're empathetic, because that's what we do, we are so specially powered to.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to add a pitch for joining? How about this slightly different? Oh, Jeff, did I miss you because of a lack?
Nope.
Okay.
Just gonna +1. Jess did a great job.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Just to turn for a few seconds to a slightly different topic, what kinds of tips would you give our community in terms of caring for themselves during this process of searching, whether it's for clients or for a job? I think my tip must be join in. What are the tips that you would give our little community here of job seekers and freelancers about caring for themselves while they're looking?
I think the biggest sorry.
Go ahead, Jessica.
The biggest tool for me has just been just so much self-reflection, even outside of the listening tour. Like, okay, why did I apply for that job? Like, was I really interested in that job? What drew me to that? And like really just that honesty and vulnerability with yourself. And I actually kind of just made a big circle, I feel like, because I eventually talked to someone who was a UXR that I didn't know, and she was like, well, okay, well, it looks like your background is in education, social work. She's like, so why wouldn't you look at those companies? And I was like, why wouldn't I look at those companies? That is a great question. Like, your skills are uniquely aligned with that aspect of work, just in a different way. And that even was a huge confidence boost, because then you're like, oh, yeah, I have done that work. It might not have been UXR work, but it was work in that area, and I do have knowledge about that. So, yeah, I think just the time and like not rushing through the process is a huge thing.
Yeah, I hear a little bit of be gentle with yourself in that. And I think, a lot of us are coming from fast-paced jobs, and we also live in a society that's very like drive, achieve. And just fighting that urge to do the spray and pray, or to demand of yourself that you're literally sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day. Like, you're not going to be productive in your job search that long. I think there's a sense of just being gentle and giving yourself credit for the things that you do, and knowing that you're taking, one step at a time in the right direction.
I think
someone was going to jump in.
Tracy, it was like having some personal goals. So people have said like, oh, I remodeled my bathroom, and then I felt like really accomplished. Like, once I was the first person in my JSC to get a job, and I was like, no, they wanted me to start right away. And I was like, but I had all of these things that I was do. And I really just didn't accomplish it. So everybody should try to make sure, because that makes you feel good to accomplish those things. But also at some point you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done for the last like 6 months? So, do something you really want to accomplish a personal.
+1. Were you going to jump in too, Jeff?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sometimes I see your microphone is picking something up, and then I don't know if it's you talking. So apologies. So I need to wrap up this discussion. I think you will all agree that these three are just lovely humans who came to share their experience with us, and I appreciate it very much, all of you, the 3 Js. What we are doing here at the Guild is facilitating your entry into Never Search Alone. So if you want to be on a team with other people who are researchers, UX researchers, then you can commit to join a team like that, and we will be organizing those teams. We need people when you sign up to volunteer to be a moderator. It's all self-run, and that's true of the entire community. This is a volunteer-run program. It is free, save the cost of the book, and it's your team will be run by you. So one of the people in your team needs to be a moderator and just help shepherd the team along through that. I think you'll see a link to commit to joining a group in the chat. And I think that's what I have to say about that. Yeah. I'm wishing you all the best. It is a hard process for so many reasons, and all the more reason to develop your sense of connection and community, both through the Guild, through NSA, through your past networks, all of those things. I do think that kind of keeps you afloat. So thanks for being here today.
Tracy, thank you so much. Panelists, thank you so much. I feel like that theme you ended on is just so vital. It's hard, and it's maybe harder than we think when we start. So we think, I can do this, or I've done it before.
Yeah.
But the community and the process just helps us get through something that may be much longer and harder than we expect. Right. So I've heard of job searches lasting 2 years. So, boy, if you knew that at the beginning, you'd be willing to put in this work to refine your search, to do, Jeff, to your point of just doing a great job of this process so that you can make it to the right place and make it there more quickly with the help of others. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It was awesome. We do have our giveaway now. For one lucky person, they won't have to buy even the book. So we're going to give away a copy of the book. We haven't taken too many questions. I don't know if anyone stands out, Tracy, who you'd like to offer the book to, or if we should just do it randomly.
I wonder, we can do it randomly because I unfortunately was listening maybe too closely to the conversation to see the questions pop by.
No problem. We'll see the giveaway, and we
do
can
it
follow
randomly because I think they're, yeah. I'm also happy. Will someone be able to get this transcript so I can actually follow up? Okay, thanks, Janine. Thanks.
Also, each of the participants has listed their LinkedIn on the networking spreadsheet. So if you go to that spreadsheet, you'll be able to link with any of them and message them on LinkedIn to follow up if you would like to. Okay, so for a random giveaway, Tracy, you message me a number between 1 and 100. And then anyone who's on the call, just put in the chat a number between 1 and 100, and whoever's closest, we'll send a free book to. Okay, so I'm seeing everyone else's numbers come in.
This is very exciting. There's so many people. You guys.
Okay, so I can just find Tracy's number. I can't find your number, Tracy. Oh, there it is.
Okay, I will send it again.
Okay,
Okay.
so
okay.
Has everyone put in their number that wants to? Because I'm going to divulge the real number. We'll see who's closest. Last chance to put in. Thank you so much for participating, everyone. Tracy's number is 14. Didn't anyone put in 14? Who's the closest to 14? I see some 20s.
I think
Sylvia
Ma'am
I see a
is the
12.
closest.
What do you see?
12.
Same, the 12.
Sylvia, okay. Sylvia, we think you're our winner, unless anyone else wants to challenge our assessment.
Awesome,
Please,
thank you.
You're totally welcome. Please message me or Janine with your maybe email address, and we'll follow up with you with the details.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Thanks for coming. So this is the end of our session. However, we always offer breakout room networking. So I'll create a few rooms. If anyone wants to stay, meet with others, chat with others, you're absolutely welcome to. It's just voluntary. But once again, a final thank you to Tracy, to Jeff, to Jess, to Jessica. It was an awesome session. Thank you for sharing your experience and hope.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, people, for helping us. Yes, thanks for sharing.